We got shirts on sale. Express your love for the Evolutions and the new channel rebrand with an Evolution t-shirt and hoodie. On sale now. Also, if you like anime, go check out our anime channel MysticSage for awesome anime content. And be sure to follow me on social media so you can stay caught up with the channels and me. Links will be in the description below. I've been going strong on the channel lately in ranking gym leaders and other various aspects of the Pokemon franchise, and I decided today to focus on the various Elite Fours offered in Pokemon. There's been an Elite Four in every generation thus far, with the exception of the current one, Generation 8. That guarantees us 7 different Elite Fours to rank here. The idea is to take the strongest Elite Four representing that said region and use that on the list. So for example, I didn't rank above Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon's Elite Four on this list. Instead, I chose one over the other as a representative of the region. Hopefully that clears up any confusion you guys might have going in. Alright, so that being said, let's hop into ranking the Elite Fours from weakest to strongest. Starting off these rankings, we have the region of Kalos and the Elite Four of Pokemon X and Y. While the games aren't exactly great, this Elite Four is actually one of the more interesting ones, despite each member only having 4 Pokemon on their team. It's got a very bold group with Fire, Steel, Water, and Dragon types, and much like with the Unova, this was a challenge you could take on in any order that you wanted. Now in my opinion, the weakest member of the Kalos Elite Four has got to be Drasna. She has access to one of the best typings in the game, and yet she only uses a Dragalge and Dredigan that are really not all that great. Sure, Noivern and Altaria can be good, but they are far from the best dragons available in the gen. I'd say the next weakest is probably Malva, the fire type user. She has a Talonflame that's going to quickly KO itself with Flare Blitz and Brave Bird, and an absolutely frail Pyroar. Her Torkoal isn't that bad if it sets up with Curse, and the Chandelure is probably her best Pokemon working with great moves like Flamethrower and Shadow Ball. Next up is Seabold, who is definitely a bit better than the other two. He uses a Starmie, which is always a good Pokemon to turn to, loaded with Surf and Psychic as well as Dazzling Gleam. There's also Gyarados and Clawitzer too, which are 2 Pokemon capable of using their movesets and abilities in battle to give the opponents a hard time. Finally, we've got Wikstrom, the Steel user that doesn't just rely on the typing's great defenses, but also one of the absolute best Pokemon to be introduced in the 6th generation, Aegislash. Wikstrom even puts together a great set for it, with King Shield, Iron Head, and Sacred Sword leading the charge. Klefki is great as a defense Pokemon, and has some moves that really makes use of its Prankster ability. Then there is Scizor, who is of course a fantastic offensive weapon. The X and Y Elite Four is not really a huge challenge because it takes away one less Pokemon they have access to. That's one less threat we as players have to worry about. That reason alone, in my opinion, is what makes them the worst of the regions. And with Wikstrom being semi-better, with the fact he only has 4 Pokemon, still means the same exact thing. Next up, we have the Elite Four of the Johto region, which was the same from the original appearance in Heart Gold and Soul Silver as it was in the original games. While this Elite Four challenge is one of the weakest and rather easiest of the group, it still poses a little bit of a challenge. For instance, you start off against Will, a Psychic user, that calls upon some of the better Psychic types you get in Johto, with the exception of Alakazam of course. He has 2 Xatu, a Jinx, a Slowbro, and an Exeggutor. Now, like I said, these are some of the better Psychic types in the generation, with Slowbro definitely being the best of the group. It's level 41 and has Amnesia and Curse working alongside Water Pulse and Psychic, which of course comes together to be a fairly good Pokemon. With that being said though, the rest of the team doesn't particularly stack up as well. The next couple members, Koga and Bruno, weren't new characters when they appeared originally in Gold and Silver as members of this iteration of the Elite Four. However, Bruno does hold the distinction of being the only Elite Four member to be reused in an Elite Four of another region. And yes, this counts, even though this is technically the same league as the one that appears in Kanto. Koga's team, while being based around the poison type like his Gen 1 gym team was, is unfortunately so loaded with lackluster bug types like Ariados and Venomoth. It really brings down the challenge with him, even with a rather well-built Crobat on his team. As for Bruno, he's got a tremendous Hitmonchan that has all 3 elemental punches alongside Bullet Punch, and also quite a powerful Machamp, but the rest of his team just isn't at all impressive. Finally, there is Karen, and I'd say she's definitely the best of the group, though that may be a little biased as she does lead off with an Umbreon, and obviously that means a lot to me. She gets the best out of her Houndoom Mace and has a pretty good Gengar and Vileplume as well. The Murkrow is quite a disappointment to see on this team, but since it's the same as her one from the original releases, it makes sense why they wouldn't have given her a Honchkrow. To wrap things up on this one, the Johto Elite Four is the second weakest of the 7 we'll talk about, but it does have its charms, and there is a little bit of challenge in it. I'll admit though, it doesn't help that this challenge features the lowest levels of all Elite Fours. Well, for this next Elite Four, we don't have to go far. As a matter of fact, we don't have to go anywhere. The third weakest of the Elite Four challenges is Cantos Elite Four, and for this, we're going to be talking about the incarnation from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Technically speaking, this is the most recent Elite Four we've gotten to experience, and is so far the only Elite Four you can actually play through on the Nintendo Switch. Lorelei is the first person you face in this challenge, and she has a relatively decent team put together. Slowbro and Lapras are great Pokemon, and the ones that this iteration of Lorelei turns to are well put together, despite the fact that all of her Pokemon, as well as all those in the rest of the Elite Four, only have 3 moves on their sets. A look at Bruno makes it clear that he is the weakest of the group, though once again he has a great Hitmonchan ready for coverage, and a strong Machamp. He still does though have an awful Onix and a less than helpful Hitmonlee, but there's also a Poliwrath that takes advantage of some good physical stab. Agatha is the next member of this Elite Four, and her team definitely comes off as more of a poison-type team instead of a ghost like it should be. Though I guess that's not majorly her fault since her original team was full poison types. Though back then she had a Haunter instead of the Weezing she has now, so at least then, she had over half of her team with a ghost typing. Finally, there is Lance the Dragon Master, a former champion who made his debut as an Elite Four member. The team that this man employs for Let's Go includes a Charizard and a Seadra, a far cry from the team he had in Pokemon Yellow. While it may be a more interesting lineup for this team, I've got to say that it's just not very good. Every single one of his Pokemon has Hyper Beam. But this is Gen 7, not the first. Hyper Beam just isn't the broken move it used to be, and having it on a Pokemon like Charizard is absolutely ridiculous when it doesn't even have a Fire-type move. It's a shame that this isn't a better Elite Four, considering it being such a classic, but it at least is a little bit better than Johto's. We now reach the midpoint of this rankings with the Elite Four that I find to be the middle of the road when it comes to difficulty and strength. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire's Hoenn Elite Four. Now, the Elite Four in ORAS is definitely an interesting combo of the teams from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, featuring more stacked teams that take advantage of some of the updates that have come to the Pokédex since the original release of the 3rd generation. The one disappointing thing is that they save the Mega Evolutions for the rematches with the leaders. But you know what? That's alright. The battles you have in this challenge can be slightly difficult anyway, starting with Sydney. Sydney is the only member of the Elite Four here to actually have the same exact team as his Ruby and Sapphire counterpart, being led by an Absol. He focuses on the Dark type, and while you may assume you could easily tear through his team with a Fairy type, he has a Sharpedo with Poison Fang that may be able to take a bite out of that plan. He is definitely the easiest of the 4 in this challenge though. The next trainer you take on in this Elite Four is Phoebe, a master of Ghost type Pokemon. She had a duo of Dusclops and Emerald, and actually has a Dusknoir for this battle, and it helps make her team all the more interesting to go up against. The Dusknoir has all 3 of the elemental punches along with Hex, what is actually a rather interesting moveset to see on an in-game team, considering Hex is usually paired with other moves that cost status elements. All of her Pokemon make good use of Ghost Stab, and will pose a decent challenge if you're not packing Fairy and Dark type moves. Next is Glacia, and her team is the most changed from her original appearance. Instead of having 2 Celio on her team, she instead has 2 Frostlass to partner up with 2 Glalie and a Walrein. All of the Snorunt evolutions also have Hail in their movesets, and with that, they enable Walrein to easily connect with Blizzard in battle, and the Frostlass as well. I don't think this is that difficult of a battle really, as you can just turn the strong Rock type moves to push through, but it's still quite the different experience. Finally, there is Drake the Dragon Master, a man with 2 Flygon, a Kingdra, an Altaria, and a Salamence. It makes a lot of sense that his team looks like that though, of course, featuring every non-legendary dragon that was introduced in Hoenn. Now that the Fairy type exists though, this entire Elite Four battle becomes a lot easier to deal with. But if you happen to be going through this challenge without a Fairy type Pokemon, it can prove to be a bit of a hard one. It's sort of a perfect middle ground in between the weakest and strongest version of Elite Fours in the games, with the capability of either being a cakewalk or a possible annoyance depending on what you take in a battle with you. The next Elite Four we're talking about is Sinnoh, specifically the one that appears in Platinum. There's actually a major difference in the E4 for Platinum compared to Diamond and Pearl, making this a more complex challenge. Aaron's team changes for the better in Platinum, as his Beautifly and Destox become a Yanmega and Scizor, who definitely serve as better complements to Vespiquen, Heracross, and a very powerful Drapion. Bertha's team becomes a lot better too, replacing a Sudowoodo and Quagsire with Gliscor and Rhyperior. It's almost crazy to think she didn't have this Pokemon in her original appearance, as when I think of some of the best Pokemon introduced in Gen 4, it would definitely be those 2. Her team still gets absolutely schooled by grass types, but at least in this case, Gliscor offers a lot of strength and coverage with its moveset that can get in the way of a grass type sweep. I think Flint sees the best glow up of this Elite Four, retaining his Infernape and Rapidash from Diamond and Pearl, but gaining a Magmortar, Flareon, and Houndoom. His Infernape is built in an almost pseudo-competitive way, and the presence of Sunny Day and Solar Beam on a few Pokemon make it clear that they're not going to let the usual fire weakness walk in and just do what they want. Finally, there is Lucian, and he's definitely got a team worthy of being the final wall between you and Cynthia. He's got a powerful core of Alakazam and Gallade, the best of the special and physical side of the Psychic typing in Gen 4. Alakazam's Psychic is going to do a ton of damage to mostly any Pokemon, and it's even got Focus Blast to help deal with Dark types. Gallade, on the other hand, has two fantastic stab moves in Psycho Cut and Drain Punch. The other Pokemon include an Espeon, a Mr. Mime, and a Bronzong, and they are definitely set up to give you a hard time as well. This Elite Four is possibly the first time Pokemon had a truly difficult challenge, and as you guys know, Cynthia is one of the absolute strongest champions of all time. We now reach the penultimate Elite Four challenge, and for this one, we're headed to Unova to talk about their Elite Four. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. There's no way this one is that hard enough to be up here. Well, I'll be honest and say that in some ways, you are probably right if you're thinking that way. However, I do firmly believe that despite there being only 4 Pokemon per team, that this is a real challenge worthy of being the second most difficult Elite Four challenge. Now, Unova set the precedent that would become of all new Elite Four challenges as one where you can challenge the Elite Four in whatever order you choose. So just like with Kalos, I'll start with who I think is the weakest and move on to the strongest. In this case, we're starting with the fighting type user, Marshall. Marshall's team is headlined by a very threatening Conkeldurr, but unfortunately it is surrounded by a couple bad Pokemon in Sock and Throh. On the other side of the spectrum, however, Marshall has a more than stellar Mienshao. That Conkeldurr though, with its ability Sheer Force, albeit there isn't a move on its set that actually takes advantage of it can still set up Bulk Up, which is a great move that boosts its attack and defense by 1 stage. Now, I'm following up with Chantel here, who is definitely a step up from Marshall. She has some great ghost types making up her team, including possibly the best one introduced in Gen 5, Chandelure. Speaking of, Chandelure is an absolute beast of Shadow Ball and Fire Blast, backed up by Psychic and Energy Ball. It's absolutely set to make the most of its special attacking ability. Its supporting cast are Cofagrigus, Drifblim, and Golurk, which are a few more great ghost types. It's surprising that Drifblim is on this team, considering just how much Gen 5 likes to focus on their own Pokemon. But considering the Elite Four I'm featuring is from Black and White 2, it's not out of the realm of possibility to see older generation Pokemon. Golurk makes great usage of its stab physical moves, like Earthquake and Shadow Punch, and Cofagrigus is of course an annoyingly defensive Pokemon with the Mummy ability. The next member is Caitlin, and her Psychic type team has got a Sigilith, which as you guys know is a Gen 5 Pokemon I hold in a very high regard. She also has Musharna, Gothitelle, and Reuniclus, which really solidifies her as having the best the Psychic typing has to offer in the 5th generation. The Gothitelle has Calm Mind too, and some really good special moves to use. Finally, we have Grimsley and his Dark type Pokemon. Bisharp is of course a very strong Pokemon, as are Scrafty and Crocodile. These are some very strong Pokemon, and honestly this lineup of Elite Four members make the absolute most of their typing, proving that despite only having 4 Pokemon per team in this instance, less is more. Okay, before you guys call me hypocritical for putting Unova second highest, let me explain the difference between Unova and Kalos and the rest of the Elite Fours. I'm gonna make this as short as I possibly can. Pokemon X and Y are the easiest games in this series. We can all agree on that. Their Elite Four also lacks any kind of coverage for the weaknesses. When I look at the Black and White 2 Elite Four, their teams have so much coverage. I would say even more coverage than the previous Elite Fours in this series. Every Pokemon across the board has some sort of coverage, and it's pretty sad that they only have 4 Pokemon and are able to be better than most of the leagues in the franchise. However, I do believe there is still another Elite Four that is better. Finally, we reach, in my opinion, the strongest Elite Four to ever be featured in a Pokemon game. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon's Alola Elite Four. I know there's going to be a lot of controversy when it comes to the 7th generation, and the Ultra games in particular, but in doing research for this video, I determined that this definitely is the strongest Elite Four lineup of all time. These teams are stacked, and we're going to start off with Olivia. She's the easiest by proxy, as she's the only member of this Elite Four that has Pokemon with only 3 moves on their set. Her Armaldo, Cradily, and Gigalith are those Pokemon, but even then, they've got some pretty good power behind them. Armaldo has X-Scissor and Rock Blast, Cradily has Stealth Rocks for setting up and the all-powerful Energy Ball, and Gigalith has Iron Head, Bulldoze, and Stone Edge. Those are 3 rather powerful Pokemon, and the Lycanroc she has is also pretty good too with Crunch and Stone Edge, and she's also equipped with Rocky MZ. Next is Kahili, the Flying-type Golfer, with a stacked team of her typing as well. Oricorio in its Fire form is obviously a great one to have, since it can tackle Ice types with Revelation Dance. She's got Hawlucha, who can take out Ice types as well, throwing around Flying Presses and such. Braviary has a strong moveset, but isn't exactly the most threatening Pokemon ever, and the same goes for Manabuzz. That Toucannon though, with that Z move and a couple moves that take advantage of Skill Link, is probably the cream of the crop. Next is Acerola and her Ghost-type line. And her Ghost-type lineup is a rather spooky one. Her Palossand with Shadow Ball, Earth Power, Giga Drain, and Iron Defense is a really nicely put together set that can get annoying to deal with. She also has a Bayonet, Delmice, Driftblim, and Frostlass, which act as a nice wall standing between you and her ace. And while it may look like this battle isn't that hard, it's an easy trap to fall into, as there is some fantastic stab on this squad. Finally, there's Mullane, who was a new addition to the Elite Four in the Ultra games. Without even getting too deep into it, listen to this team. Prankster Klefki, Bisharp, Magnezone, Alolan Trio, and Metagross. That is just such a good team, and that Prankster Klefki alongside Metagross is just so good. The other three Pokemon too, and I'd honestly say there's a good chance Mullane's team is one of the best Elite Four teams ever. Well, that's going to do it for this ranking. As always, this was my opinion, and I'm sure you guys have your own, so please let me know down below. I'm dying to know what you guys think about this ranking list. So leave your thoughts down below, and I'll be sure to check out the comments. If you enjoyed the video, why not leave a like and subscribe to my channel with notifications on, that way you never miss an upload. If you want to support me further, consider following my Twitch where I stream all sorts of games from Pokemon, to Fire Emblem, to Zelda, and much more. I also have an anime channel called MysticSage, where I do anime reviews, rankings, and countdowns. So if you're interested in that kind of content, go ahead and check that out as well. If you want to support me even further and gain cool perks, check out my Patreon. These lovely people have all given me their support over there, and I couldn't be more grateful to them. I think I'm gonna wrap this up though. I'm Mystic Umbreon, and I will see you in the future for more awesome Pokemon content.